The generation known as millennials, those of us born between 1982 and 1996, are often said to be a rather anxious generation. I have always felt like I could relate to that, but I've never fully understood it until I came across a meme recently about why it is millennials are so anxious. This meme pointed out that we were in elementary school when the first major school shooting in Columbine happened. We were coming of age during 9/11 and the subsequent war. We graduated and were trying, emphasis on trying, to enter the workforce during the Great Recession of 2007 and 2008. And many of us were just becoming parents when a global pandemic shut down our world. So maybe there have been a few things for us to be anxious about over the years. Now, millennials, of course, aren't the only generation to be shaped by the major world events of our lifetime. It is often world events that actually define when a generation begins and ends. And certainly those events shape how each generation lives in the world. My grandmother was a teenager and young adult during the Great Depression, and she never got out of the thrifty habits of that time. After she died, we found wads of cash under her mattress, piles of coupon clippings, and cupboards filled with cans of food that were well past their expiration dates. I know that those of you who lived through World War II and the Vietnam War, the assassinations of JFK and Martin Luther King Jr., the resignation of President Nixon, and so much more, have been shaped by these events, as the world and our understanding of it has shifted with each one. We cannot know in advance what will meet us as we move through life, both on a personal level and on a global level. Nor is it all in our control. In many ways, our lives are just a series of unexpected arrivals, some good, some bad, some maybe we hoped for, some that we dreaded, and many that arrive with no warning at all. And it is often these unexpected arrivals and how we live through them that shape us the most. It's not the plans we make or the goals we set that define who we become. Instead, it is how we meet the mess. It is the tragedy and the trauma. It is how we greet the unexpected that determines our becoming. Now, we may like to think that we have some control over it all, but it is so often not the case. Last year, right around this time, as we were moving towards the 2024 elections, I preached about our power to create the kind of country we want to call home. Now, I still believe very deeply that we are powerful together. We can never forget that. And I know that we have the power to change our world for the better. And I also know that it's been hard in this past year to feel like we have any control at all. It's been hard to feel that power. Each day brings news of some new horror. The suppression of free speech, losing access to life-saving vaccines, immigrants detained, jobs lost, vital research halted, famine in Gaza, and a shooting right here in our community. And violence upon violence upon violence. It is so much. It is too much. Each day, a new arrival, unexpected, unwelcome, uninvited. And our reality is that we can't magically stop these arrivals. We can throw ourselves into the work to stop it, to move us onto a path of more love and more justice, and I hope we do. I know We are doing that. But we can't just stop it. No matter how much we change our world for the better, life will always throw unexpected arrivals our way. Illness and death, shifts in relationships, construction delays, you name it, and it may arrive. And so our spiritual work in this is to recognize what we can and cannot control, and to meet what arrives with courage and presence. I love the way that Reverend Linda Susan talks about it in our Words for Reflection, that our work in times of unexpected arrivals is to meet what arrives. Not to stop, not to slam on the brakes and seize up with fear, but to move through these times rooted in our values and in our communities. We cannot choose what comes our way, but we can choose how we respond, how we continue to live in the midst of it all. There are lots of folks out there who have talked about this idea that trauma is not our fault, but our healing is our responsibility. Now, I think this isn't a perfect way to talk about it because it gets a little too close to victim blaming. But there are some important truths in that idea. We are handed cards in life that are not always fair. People hurt us. The world hurts us. We live through traumatic times. And none of that is your fault, right? None of it. And you are the only one who can take responsibility for your healing. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to do it all alone. In fact, I don't think you should. But there cannot be healing unless you allow for it. And when you do, it can be amazing what kind of growth can come from that healing. In psychological terms, this is often referred to as post-traumatic growth. Have you heard of that idea? What that means is that when we have lived through a trauma, there are ways of processing that trauma that result in not just getting back to what we were before, but actually growing into something new, perhaps stronger or wiser, more compassionate or more loving. Post-traumatic growth is not inevitable, but it is possible. There are all kinds of feel-good stories out there about people who have gone through hard times and come out the other side stronger. I imagine that many of you may have stories like this from your own lives. I know I do. When have you faced something unexpected and unwelcome? How did you move through it? What did you learn from that time? And even though you probably aren't grateful for the experience, are there ways that it changed you for the better? There are some key ingredients that make post-traumatic growth more possible. And you are all in luck because you have some of them just by being here this morning, just by being a part of a community like this one. Having a support system and being a part of a community is one of the key indicators for post-traumatic growth. Do you have the ability to heal on your own? Of course. And is it a whole lot easier when you have others by your side? Absolutely. Now, another key factor in post-traumatic growth is the ability to make meaning out of what happened. Again, that's what we do here, right? We need space and time to make meaning out of our trauma, and it is easier to do that when we're grounded in a community and a set of values that allow meaning-making to happen. Simply the practice of coming together and reflecting on what it is that matters most can lead to growth. Now, all of this is well and good. We've got all the ingredients for post-traumatic growth right here. But it gets a lot harder when the trauma is ongoing, when there's nothing post about it, and when there seems to be no end approaching. Now, it may be that some of you are sitting here and thinking, well, I haven't experienced trauma. I'm not experiencing trauma. But I would say that all of us have been experiencing one trauma after another for at least the past 10 years. Between harmfully oppressive leadership, a global pandemic that is still wreaking havoc, the increasing effects of climate change, and the ever-present threat of gun violence, we have been steeped in trauma for so long. It's in our bodies and in our hearts, in our reactivity and in our numbness. It is even in those who are too young to fully understand. Post-traumatic growth implies that the trauma is over. But when it just goes on and on and on, how can we grow? How can we even live despite it all? It is certainly harder, but I believe we can grow. I believe we can still live good and full lives, and that, in fact, living well in the face of a world that seeks to re-traumatize us on a daily basis is in itself an act of resistance. And it is often the sustenance we need to live in these times. If it is community and meaning making that is needed for post-traumatic growth, then perhaps it is the same ingredients that can help us live well in the midst of ongoing trauma. In the story of the pilot that Sadie shared with us, the pilot was suddenly, unexpectedly lost, thinking that his fuel tank was almost empty. And yet when he reached out, he found not only the community he needed to get him back on track, but also a deeper reserve than he had anticipated. On the days when we are feeling lost, buried in the trauma, in the unexpected and unwelcome arrivals of this time, perhaps the answer for us too is to reach out, to find the people around you who can get you back on track, who can remind you that you actually have more fuel than you think. These times that we live in will shape us, but they need not control us, and they certainly need not destroy us. We can still live wholeheartedly. We can still find meaning and purpose in our lives. We can meet what arrives with presence and grace rooted in our values and in our communities. As we move through these unexpected and unwelcome arrivals, activist Lindsay Meyer Harley offers these instructions on living in a broken world. She writes, "Lean into community. Seek out love. Applaud the good you see. Keep paying attention. Talk to your neighbors. Dance to the music and embrace art. Look for love and small joys. Take breaks and relish in nourishing your body. Donate what you can. Linger at the dinner table with friends. Check in with your people. Let yourself grieve. Love one another as deeply as you can. The storm is upon us and we must hold on. Don't give up. We're here together." End quote. May it be so for us all.